Well, it's many hours since I started talking here about this long story from the ancient world. And it's appropriate we finish in this final section on what we can do about it and how we can bring this manipulation to an end and bring freedom, true freedom, to this planet for the first time in literally thousands of years. And therefore, it's hardly surprising that it's this information that I'm going to be talking about now that has been most suppressed and most fiercely suppressed of all. Because if we realize who we really are and the nature of our true power to control our own destiny and control the direction of our lives, then the ability of a few to control the many becomes impossible. This is why we've had such emphasis over these thousands of years on creating religions and other prisons of the mind which have divorced us and kept us apart from the knowledge that would set us free. And we really come to another opposame, religion and science. As I document in my books, the same secret societies that created religion, all of them, were the same that created what we call science, this idea, excuse me if I insult your intelligence, that this world is all there is and we come from oblivion, and after a period in awakened consciousness of a few seconds or 100 years, we go back to oblivion. Get letters after your name for coming up for that, you know, it's amazing. And a big salary. Now, these two things appear to be opposites. One saying God and all this stuff, and you must do what God says. And this one saying there is no God, and it's kind of, you're just a cosmic accident, darling. They have many things in common. They have one key thing in common. They're both saying that control of our lives is not here, it's out here somewhere. What science is saying is always just a random accident, mate. Just your luck. And over here in religion, it's saying, well, yeah, your destiny is controlled by whether you serve and do what God says. Oh, by the way, me and my long frock and nice collar, I know what God wants, so do what I tell you and you'll be fine, darling. And so religion was used for so long, and still is used massively, to control people and shut their minds off from the reality of who they are and the nature of their true power, life itself indeed. And when, particularly during the last couple of centuries, people began in increasing numbers not to buy that little scam, along came this world is all there is science to pick them up. And the idea of both, and indeed the creators of both, were high initiates of the secret society and mystery school network who knew that both versions of life were a load of old crap. If we don't buy either, we can see what they're trying to keep us from. We are given the choice of being controlled by God or being basically a cosmic accident, okay? What we are not given the choice to see from early in our lives, unless we have enlightened parents, is that we are not a physical body and we are not just an entity that lives in a physical world. We are everything that exists. Increasingly open-minded science, and my goodness me, it's about time we had some of that, is starting to confirm what mystics and people that talk about this have been saying for thousands of years. That everything that exists in the whole of creation, in this dimension and others, is the same energy in different states of being. And the vibrational state of that energy decides what that energy will manifest as. And therefore, we are not the physical body. That is our genetic spacesuit through which we experience this world. What we are is multidimensional consciousness that animates that body. And the question is, how much of that consciousness are we going to access? A little bit or massive amounts of it? We have a connection between our spiritual energy self and our physical self, which is called the chakra system. It comes from a Sanskrit word meaning wheels of light, and the Sanskrit language comes from the Aryan race that came out of the Caucasus Mountains. You know the score by now. Now, what these chakra vortexes do, and there's 7 main ones, but many others, is that they interpenetrate our levels of being. So we have a mental level, which is an energy field. It's a frequency range. That's our rational thought, as they call it. We have an emotional level, which is another frequency range. We have a spiritual level, which is the higher dimensions of ourselves. And these levels are interpenetrated by these chakra vortexes, these wheels of light. And therefore, an imbalance on one level is, through this vortex system, transferred to other levels. This is why when we get very emotionally stressed, the first thing that stops happening is we stop thinking straight. We stop thinking straight because the imbalance on the emotional level has been transferred to the mental level, and bang, 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 we go. Now, if this imbalance goes on, this emotional imbalance, it's transferred eventually to the lowest level of this system, which is the physical level. And it manifests in the physical body as a chemical reaction. Now, it's at this point that modern medicine comes in with its drugs and scalpels at the point of the chemical reaction. Therefore, it is treating the symptom of the energy imbalance, the emotional imbalance, not the cause. And I remember where I lived on the Isle of Wight, little island off the south coast of England, the doctor's practice there sent out a letter to everybody who was in that practice, the patients and stuff. And it kind of encapsulates the whole thing magnificently. It said, patients are reminded that appointments with the doctor are for 5 minutes only, and this is not a time to discuss your other problems. What has been so massively missed is there are other problems creating the emotional imbalance and distress that are causing the physical illness. So if you look at the human entity as a whole, you're looking at a very different vision of who we are and health and every other aspect of life than if you think that we're just a physical body. And these chakra vortexes are drawing in, particularly what they call the base chakra, vast amounts of energy which we can create with in ways that I'll come to in a second. The more these chakra vortexes are closed down, the less energy they're drawing in, the less energy we have to work with and create with. And so from this high level of knowledge that I've been talking about over thousands of years, at the peak of this brotherhood network, they understand these things. And so much of the manipulation of human emotion and human thinking, human perception and human attitudes has been designed to close these vortexes down so we access a fraction of multidimensional infinity, this infinite mind that we're part of. There was an American comedian called Bill Hicks, great guy, died in 1994, who summed up this whole concept of life I'm talking about in this way, because he was a very bright man. He said, matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration. We're all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There's no such thing as death. Life is just a dream, and we are the imagination of ourselves. And that's the key. What we imagine ourselves to be is what we physically create. So if we can be manipulated to imagine ourselves as ordinary, then we'll create ordinary lives. When the penny drops that we are all extraordinary, we live extraordinary lives, and this manipulation is over. We're like droplets of water in an ocean of consciousness. We're individual to an extent, just like droplets of water are individual. You can hold one in your hand. But those droplets together make up the ocean. Without the droplets, there is no ocean. It's the same with this infinite energy mind we call creation, God, whatever you want to call it Ethel, I'm not bothered. We are not part of that infinity. We are that infinity. If we open ourselves up to reconnect with it. And this is where we come back to the eggshell. Because most people are manipulated through fear and sense of limitation to shut off from that infinity and all its infinite wisdom, love, understanding that is available to be tapped any time, because it's us. Wherever you stand in infinity, you are at the center of infinity. So everything that exists is everything that exists. I am everything that exists. So are you. The more you realize that, the more you open up to the full infinity of who you are. Your life transformed. Your vision of yourself is transformed. Your vision of everything is transformed. The more you see yourself as just an individual, ordinary little man and woman in the street, I got no power, mate, what can I do? Once you do that, you are shutting yourself off from the infinity of who you are, and you become a fraction of what you are. And then you are able to be controlled, but only then. Which is why this understanding has been so suppressed. That's where most people live their lives. In a sense of, I can't, mate, I could never, mate, all the best things in life happen to someone else, mate. Oh, what can I do? And when we're there, piece of cake, manipulator in one hand while having a cup of tea in another. When we're here, we're a manipulator's nightmare, breaking the eggshell, breaking the sense of limitation, breaking the sense of fear, the fear of what other people think of us. How many people watching this video now would love to say something, but they think, oh, God, what will my mother say? Oh, what will they think of me? Or you'd love to do something in your life, and you say, oh, well, what will they think? I couldn't give a damn what they think. They have a right to think what they like, but so do you and so do I. We forgot that. And once we start believing that because people are different to us, they must be wrong, then we're in a situation where whoever sets the norms in society runs the world. Because we police each other, like I said right at the start of this journey we've both been on, and all been on in the last few hours. Cracking the eggshell, stepping out of the fear of what other people think of us, being who we are, speaking our truth, living our uniqueness. That is the revolution. It's not guns and bombs and meeting violence with violence and meeting anger with anger. What's the point? You get twice the anger, twice the violence. My goodness me, we've moved on, haven't we? The way out of this is the ultimate revolution. It's to be who we are and not what someone else tells us we should be. It's interesting. If you stood in front of a mirror, or not even in front of a mirror, anywhere, and you got a baseball bat, and you started smacking yourself around the head with it, people would call the guys in white coats, wouldn't they? Crikey, get him away. And yet that's what we're doing all the time. When we express that violence to another human being, or to an animal, or to anything, we're actually expressing it to ourselves, because that is us. We are all each other, because we are all this infinite mind. And because we've lost sight of the fact that we are everything, and what we are inside is what we externally create, we go round, because of the manipulation, we're like walking, talking movie projectors. Let me put it this way. Our inner self, our state of being, our attitudes are resonating us to a certain vibrational frequency. You change your attitudes, the frequency changes. Hate has a certain frequency. And when we feel hate, we resonate the energy around us, that is us, to the hate frequency. We feel love, we resonate it to a different frequency. This energy that we put out with this vibrational code within it, created by our thoughts and attitudes, then draws towards it a reflection of itself. Other energy fields, people, places, ways of life, experiences that sync with what we're putting out. Therefore, what we are in here, we externally create. And I came across this symbol here. There's some esoteric symbols and that involved in there, but ignore all them. I'm just looking at the basic concept, which is of a reflection. There was a guy, a writer called Longfellow. I think it was Longfellow who wrote this. Anyway, some tall chap. And he wrote a story about how someone drowned thrashing in the water, fighting with their own reflection. And again, if you saw someone next to the river doing that, you'd call the white coats. They'd be on call all day, wouldn't they? But that's what we do, all of us, all the time. We seek to change what we've created by thrashing at the reflection instead of looking at what's creating it. So when things are happening in our lives we don't like, and we're drawing people into our lives we don't like, and we're drawing experiences we don't like, instead of saying, why am I drawing these in? What is it about me that's creating this? What is it I'm putting out that's drawing this reflection in that I don't like? This pain in the arse is giving me a hard time. Instead of taking that power back and responsibility for what we create in our lives, we look out there for it. Boom, boom, boom. And we're encouraged to. And so we're in a situation where we're looking at the reflection, trying to change what's going on, when we need to change what is being reflected. You know, if you're standing next to a river and you see a reflection of yourself and you don't like it very much, you can throw stones at it, you can cuss it, you can kick it, you can jump in and thrash around. All that external thing, which we do in our lives all the time. You're responsible, it's your fault, I'm in this position, out there, out there, out there, externalizing responsibility. But once all that thrashing around is finished in the river, and once you've thrown all those stones in, everything settles down again, and exactly the same reflection is being reflected as was before, because the reflection is merely, literally, a mirror of what is being reflected. We change inside, we change out here. This is the thing that we've been pressured, encouraged not to understand. Evolution's very, very simple. Very simple. Goes in this sequence. Experience, learn from the experience, evolve as a result of the experience. If at stage 1, we're putting out energy, reflecting our state of being, and we draw in a certain experience as a result. Person, place, whatever. If at the point where we don't like the experience, we are blaming everyone else out here. It's your fault, it was Ethel in 1963, it was me mother, it's me colour, it's me sexuality. What is pulling that experience in is not changing, because we're blaming everyone else for it. So what happens is, because what's going out hasn't changed, what comes back doesn't change, and we hit these cycles in our lives, and we've all had them, and all still have them, where the same things keep getting repeated. We pull in the same type of person to have a relationship with. We pull in the same situation in work. Nothing ever works in our lives. And yet, when you look at that, what that is evolutionary, just running on the spot. We're not moving because we're not changing what's creating what we don't like. So it goes on and on and on. Once we take responsibility back and stop looking out here to change what's going on and look at what's reflected out there, then in the same situation we say, hold on a minute, why have I pulled this experience in? What is there to learn? What is it about me that's done this? Okay, got it. At that point, your attitude, your imagination of yourself changes. When that changes, what you resonate out changes, so you start pulling in different experiences that reflect the new vibration you're putting out and not the old one. And when you kind of get into this mode of taking responsibility back, suddenly things dramatically change. And you can evolve ever so quickly. You pull in an experience. Oh, right, what is there to learn from this? Okay, got it. Change vibration, evolve. Pull in a different experience. What is there to learn from it? Got it. Change vibration, evolve. And you can move along so quickly in evolutionary terms once you start to open up to that. As more and more people on this planet are, as this cycle of change unfolds. Or you can stand here forevermore blaming every bugger else for things that you're creating and we're all creating. And that's an option too, but not a very good one. So what we put out is what we get back. We are in control of our lives. No one else. Who just kidded that we're not. For instance, I hear people, you must have heard this, where people go, nothing ever happens in my life. It's so boring. It's so boring, my life. Nothing ever happens. Everything I try, nothing kind of works, you know. And then you say to them, well, what do you want to do with your life? And they go, I don't know, really. Don't know. Never thought about it. Now, I don't know, really, is actually a state of mind. Therefore, it is a vibrational frequency, and I don't know really goes out, and I don't know really comes in. Nothing ever works, because I don't know really. If we can just focus on what we want to achieve and go with the intent, the most powerful thing we can do, what's our intent, what's our focus? This is what I want to do with my life. That intent goes out as a vibrational frequency, and it will always bring towards us experiences and challenges that lead us to achieve what we want to achieve. That's where most people give up. They say, oh, yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do the other. That's my intent. And the intent then draws towards us what we need to do to achieve that intent. And when it gets a bit challenging, we go, oh, God, well, I'd like to do it, mate, but not that badly. Thank you very much. And we're out of the game. So if we want to be free, and we want the world to be free, that's what our intent needs to be. And then the challenges and what we need to achieve that intent will come towards us, and then we can meet them and all this is over. Because if we keep jogging on the spot, blaming everyone else, this is going on, and it's going to go on into another cycle for a very long time. This idea that we create our own reality by resonating the energy around us by what we think and what we feel has now been scientifically shown to be provable. And what you're going to see now are what happens to particles of sand and other various particles when a sound resonates across a plate and resonates those particles in tune with the sound. Because when we think, we're not just sending out a wave which resonates the energy, we're sending out on a frequency outside of the range of human hearing, we're sending out a sound. Everything is sound. When we think a sound goes out, it resonates the energy around us to that sound. And what you're about to see are some pictures that show this happening when sound is introduced, and how sound takes random particles and turns it into astonishing form. And that's how this universe was created. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was sound. So what you're looking at here is merely particles formed into patterns by sound. They were all over the place to start with, just in random positions on the plate. As soon as the sound appears, they form into these patterns, because everything is sound, and it is sound that turns matter and energy into form. Patterns on the wings of birds and insects are all the manifestation of the sound vibrations. Every organ in our body resonates to a certain frequency. And when our thoughts and emotions and stress and the vibrations that causes de-harmonize the vibrational state of our various parts of our body, we become ill. We think ourselves into illness because we're affecting the vibrational state of the body. And so every time you think and feel, you're resonating a frequency which is making the energy around you resonate to the same frequency. What you give out is what you create. Here you're seeing mini galaxies just formed by particles and sound. This is how the galaxies and the universe and the solar systems were formed and continue to be held in the structure they're in through sound. If the sound changes, the matter changes, the energy changes. So when you look at what it says in texts like even the Old Testament, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was sound. And sound is everything. When you think and feel, you're creating sound. This is how the heart beats at a certain resonance. All you're looking at here are interacting frequencies making a beat. And so while the frequency of the heart is at the right level, it beats in the normal number of beats a minute. But when we become stressed, we affect that frequency and the heart beats faster. And so everything is sound, even the human heartbeat, and the interacting frequencies that make it happen. And we've seen the galaxies, and now here are the planets forming, just on a plate from particles caused by sound passing through them. This planet has a resonant frequency. It's called the Schumann cavity resonance. But basically, while that frequency holds, the planet will hold its present form. If the frequency changes, the form will change. It's the same with everything. And here you see sound being passed through ion filings and particles, and therefore creating form once again. And from these pictures, it's hardly difficult to see how the human body is formed through sound resonating energy, and how that physical form is held as long as that sound matrix is held. But once that changes, the physical body changes. So there you've seen, with stunning effect, how sound creates form, how galaxies are created, how planets are created. And all those planets, balls of particles, all those revolving galaxies were merely particles turned into that form by sound. And when you think, you create a sound and you change the world, or the world you're immediately living in. we are fundamentally in control of our lives. Here's a picture, because some of this energy that we give out, this energy that we are, can now be seen. Kirlian photography and other forms of photography can now picture the image of the energy that is actually animating our body. What is really the eternal us? And here you see someone's finger and the energy going off it. And the nature of that energy depends on what we're thinking and what we're feeling at the time. And here's some examples of how people on a psychic level and their psychic vision have seen the auras, the energy fields of people in different states of being. And indeed, if anyone's gone to some of these various spiritual and health expos and expositions around the world, they will have seen this aura photographing technology now, which can photograph the colors in the aura. And the colors change when our attitudes change. And here are different attitudes and phenomenally different colors and sequences appearing as a result of the sound and sound waves and thought waves that are generated when we change into different states of feeling. And the more we change our energy field, the more we draw in different people, different experiences, we change and we create our own reality. This is the energy field of a leaf. And what they've found is that when you cut part of a leaf away, that energy field, when you rephotograph it, holds the original blueprint shape of the leaf, even though part of it is gone, and it takes a while for that energy to reform itself into the new situation with the piece taken out of the leaf. And when people have limbs removed, of course, they feel for some time that the limb is still there. And then eventually that goes away, and that's the energy field reforming itself into the new situation as opposed to the one that was there before. So therefore, this energy that we're generating that can now be photographed and can certainly be felt when you meet someone and you say, oh, I got bad vibes from them, or I got good vibes from them, depending on their own state of being. This energy is the energy that creates our reality, because it attracts to us a reflection of itself, and what that energy reflects is our inner self, our emotional, spiritual, and mental state. So when we feel fear, we attract to us fear. We attract to us what we most fear. And this is the ultimate evolutionary genius. It's what I call designer evolution. Because of this system of what we put out is what we get back, we constantly see a reflection of our inner self in our everyday life. Therefore, we can see our inner self in a physical way and learn from the experience and move on. Also, fear is the greatest block on evolution. Whatever area that we fear, that our fear relates to, is a no-go area for our evolution. Because people don't normally say, well, I fear that, I'm going to face it. They go, oh, no, thank you very much, change the subject, not going in there. So this process of drawing to us what we put out means that we have to face what we're putting out, so we can face it and evolve. So when we fear something, we draw what we fear to us eventually. When we put out anger, we draw to us anger. When I was having my angry period, in the 1970s particularly, my life was a series of angry confrontations. I was working in the media and the BBC and all that stuff, and wherever I went, I was attracting angry people all the time. Even if I was in an apparently consciously calm state, my subconscious anger is still going out there and it's still pulling in angry people. Someone comes into a bar in that period and they'd had a bad day, they found me every time. And then I realized, and I started to ask a few questions, what's the common denominator of all these angry confrontations? Oh yes, it's you. So what goes on? What's causing them? Why? Started to realize, because I was angry, I was attracting anger. There was a lovely song that I came across by an American group which said, if you hold anger, guess what comes to you? A lot of very angry people do. And I certainly know that to be true. And when I've observed my own life and the lives of others, it's very obvious that what they're putting out in their state of being is creating their physical life. And there's nothing more debilitating, more controlling and limiting than the victim mentality. We're encouraged by this manipulation throughout our lives to see ourselves as victims, to blame someone else. Oh, I'm a victim, I'm in this situation because of A, B, C, D, and on it goes. And when we're in that state, we're going to stay in that state, because when you think you're a victim, the victim vibe goes out, the victim circumstance goes in. When you say, hey, I'm not a victim, I'm in control of my life, I've created these circumstances I don't like, therefore I can create circumstances I do. At that point, the victim mentality is gone. Victim circumstances stop being attracted, and suddenly people come into your life who are just the people you need to get you out of the circumstances you don't like. And if you don't realize what's happening, and most of us don't at the time, we say, oh my God, mate, I was so lucky. This fella came into my life at just the right time. This person, I couldn't believe it. Amazing luck. No. You pulled them in because your state of being had changed, and you synced with what you needed to get out of that situation. We are so in control of our destiny, it's unbelievable. And yet billions are persuaded they're not, and therefore they create a very different reality. So if we're in fear, we can attract a reflection of fear. But when we emit love, we create a very different energy. Therefore, we create a very different reality. It's just a choice. Everything is just a choice. I keep hearing people say, oh, I had no choice, mate. I had to do it. We never have no choice. We have choices we'd like to make, choices we'd rather not make, but we never have no choice. It's a cop-out. And some people find it very difficult to take this on, because it's much easier in their own mind to blame someone for what happens in our lives. Much more of a challenge to say, hey, I've created this. I'm responsible for it. But when you do, you stop creating what you don't like and you start creating what you do. And this love connection is the key to removing this manipulation and taking humanity onto another level of existence, another level of consciousness, which is what's happening to so many people in this period we're going through now. There's been some tremendous science that's going on over the last few years and is going on now. Open-minded science, which is challenging this tunnel vision that official science has to keep us from what's really going on. One excellent place of this research is called the HeartMath Institute in America. And what they've shown, and people like Greg Braden in his videos and a book called Awakening to Zero Point, which I would recommend, have been looking at and communicating, is this scientific confirmation that what I'm talking about here is not some airy-fairy concept, but is actually scientifically provable, as well as from our own experience. What they've shown, for instance, is if you put an empty jar with electrons in it, when you put a piece of DNA in it, that energy forms itself in the jar to the DNA form. When you take the DNA out, the energy still holds that DNA form. In other words, when we're walking through our lives in the supermarket or whatever, oh my goodness me, the price of fish this week. When we're doing all that stuff, we're actually resonating and changing the energy field around us in relation to our state of being. So you don't have to be kind of in front of a camera talking about this stuff. You can do it in your everyday life. If you go out with an open heart and love in your heart, you will be changing the energy field to that resonance of love wherever you go. Insignificant, ordinary. There's not an ordinary man, woman, blade of grass, breath of air, insect, anything, anywhere in creation. But there are billions on this planet who think they are, so they live ordinary lives. Just because they think they're ordinary. They are the extraordinary. They are genius waiting to happen. It's just a choice. It's just a thought. Another thing that's been established by this open-minded scientific research is that fear, because everything's about wavelengths and resonating energy to various frequencies, fear is a long, slow wavelength. And as the wavelength of fear passes through the DNA, it does not activate these various antennae which connect us to the bigger world, the bigger cosmic mind. But the wavelength of love is very quick, a very short wavelength, and therefore as it passes through us, it's activating these antennae all the time and connecting us to the outer world. Now this is interesting from many points of view, not least this. Everything relates to everything else the more you talk. The reason, or one key reason, why the imposition of fear and the manipulation of fear has been imposed upon the human race all these thousands of years since this control began is because it comes from a level of knowledge that understands how these things work. It understands, therefore, that if we can be manipulated into a state of fear, we are disconnecting ourselves from the infinite mind, who we really are, and the eggshells start to form. When we open ourselves to love and this heart vortex opens, we start to reconnect with all that exists and all we really are. So the pressure has been to keep us in fear and to keep us in conflict, i.e. fear. And also it's been understood that because we create our own reality by our state of being, our imagination of ourselves, it's been understood that if through outside influences, manipulations, propaganda, etc., our imagination of ourselves can be manipulated to be ordinary man and woman in the street, I've got no power, then through this process, our imagination of self, I am ordinary and powerless, will create a physical experience of being ordinary and powerless. So therefore, billions of people on this planet are being manipulated through this process of indoctrination to create a lifetime of ordinary powerless existence, when if this changes, it's all gone. This is where astrological energies come in. Oh, it's astrology. It's the devil. Why has religion been used so much to convince people that astrology is the devil? Oh, my goodness me. Because we're not supposed to realize the power of astrology. If you look at an astrological reading in a tabloid newspaper, we're not interested. But when you look at it as a science, it's very simple. The planets are constantly moving. They're constantly, therefore, in the various combinations they make in their orbits, they're affecting and changing the energy field of the Earth. We live in that energy field. When the Earth's energy field changes, we are affected. Therefore, planetary sequences affect the Earth's energy field, and we're affected. Astrology. So when we're born at a certain time in a certain place, when we're born, some people say conception, and I wouldn't dismiss that. When we're born, however, we take on the energy field in that place at that time. And as we go through our lives, that energy field we took on at birth, because of the place and the time we were born, and the places of the planets were at that time, then that interacts with the planetary movements through our lives in a different way to someone born 10 minutes or 10 months later or 10 years later at a different time, because they will have taken on a different energy field because the planets were in a different place. Therefore, the planetary energy field of the Earth would have been different at the time they were born. And so we interacted in different ways through our lives. This is why they've shown so often, again and again and again, that twins that are separated at birth, when they find each other in adult life, the lives they've led and the things that they've done have been incredibly similar, because they took on basically the same energy field at birth. But particularly the Roman Catholic Church has been used to get us to think that either on that level of the Roman Catholic Church, it's the devil, or science, the other wing of this manipulation of spirituality, says that actually the whole thing's a load of nonsense and there's no scientific basis. Well, insult my intelligence a bit more. Why is it, if it's a nonsense, does this brotherhood have key times, key places to have its summits, its economic collapses, its meetings, to set up its companies? Why have I met so many astrologers around the world who are on retainers from transnational corporations to tell them when the best time is to launch a new product, to do a takeover or whatever? Because they understand that astrology is reality, because it's the manipulation of energy. They just don't want us to know it. And of course, Christianity and other religions have been used to destroy the credibility of astrology and these other esoteric concepts, which has created a position of enormous irony. So many in the Christian Patriot movement in America have sussed and realized that the basic manipulation is going on and the nature of the scam. But they have been persuaded that the way to bring an end to the scam is the devil incarnate and the Antichrist. So they've identified the prison, but they won't go through the door to get out of it. So we are beings that are come into physical incarnation, and we are trying to balance these various pressures and energies and manifest a balanced whole. So incredible challenge in this dense physical world, and we need to be kind to ourselves that this is happening, because so often the challenges that we get are really, really extreme, especially now as this change unfolds. We need to be kind to ourselves, because this is not an easy place to live and to evolve because of the pressures we're being asked to balance. But the evolutionary spiral is so simple. Someone said to me once, that evolution is like going round a mountain. You keep facing the same view, but you see it completely differently, from a completely different angle. So down here in the evolutionary spiral, you'll have an experience, and you'll say, it was his fault, it's your fault that I'm in trouble, and how dare you. And then as you evolve, you face exactly the same experience, but then you say, why have I created this? What does it say about me? What is there to learn? Okay, got it, evolve. Same experience, different perception, higher level of evolution. Now, we are at the point, I've mentioned a number of times in these last few hours, where we're at the end of a 26,000-year cycle. As I travel the world, it's obvious that there's an awakening going on, and again, the science is starting to identify it. Some years ago, a different pulse, a different resonance was identified in the center of the spiral of the galaxy. More recently, probes that have gone to investigate what's going on the sun have identified that tremendous changes are going on in the sun. Its magnetic field is falling, and there's incredible solar flare activity that's starting to emerge, which will be very powerful in the years ahead and fundamentally affect us. So you've had the different resonance coming out of the center of the galaxy and affecting the sun. The sun is changing. When the sun changes, we change. 99% of the mass of the solar system. It's now very demonstrably been identified as being passed on to the Earth. Tremendous changes are happening in the Earth's field. Magnetics are falling. Many phenomena are unfolding as a result of this changing frequency that's come out of the galaxy. And open-minded research has also identified how the Earth connects into the human form. The resonant frequency of the Earth comes in at the heart chakra point, the love point. And from there it goes to the brain, and the brain transmits it to every cell in the body. So when you follow this sequence, this is why people are waking up at this time in increasingly vast numbers. The frequency changes the center of the galaxy. It comes to the sun, the center of this solar system. Brings about change there. From there it goes out to the planets of the solar system, to the Earth. The Earth manifests its changes. We live in the Earth's field. It affects humanity. And now this rising frequency, this changing energy field, is starting to dramatically change life on Earth, and we've seen nothing yet. If we shut down the heart, or if we get into the intellect, which follows the kind of intellectual programming instead of following the intuition of the heart, then we can switch off this connection with the cosmos, this connection through this sequence out into infinity, when the head shuts down and shuts down the heart. And that has been the process of the education system and other institutions. It's been to get people to close their heart down and get stuck, imprisoned in the head. Therefore, we switch off the cosmos and live in the eggshell. We keep coming back to the same thing. People like Greg Braden and others have started to focus on this particular image. Back in 1899, something was identified called Schumann cavity resonance. What it was the heartbeat, the frequency beat of the Earth. From the time of its discovery, 1899, to 1986, this heartbeat frequency was a constant 7 cycles, 7.8 hertz a second. Constant. Boom, 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 boom. From 1986 onwards, it started to rise dramatically. Just when people started to wake up in increasing numbers. It's gone through 9, apparently the last I heard it was gone through 10 cycles. And the projection is that by 2012, which is the point the Maya say in their calendar, and so many other calendars point to the same period, that the jump will be made from this cycle of human evolution into the next one as the 26,000-year cycle comes to an end and we enter the start of the next one. At the same time that this resonant frequency of the Earth, boom, 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 is getting quicker, and therefore affecting us, coming in through the heart for those that are open and resonate in our bodies increasingly and changing our minds and our perception of life, the magnetics of the planet are also dropping, like they are on the sun, very dramatically. 2,000 years ago was the peak of this cycle when the Earth's magnetic field was at its most powerful. It's been falling ever since, and it falls exponentially. The quicker it falls, the more it falls. The more it falls, the quicker it falls. And the projection is that what Braden calls 0 point, 2012, is that the magnetics will reach virtually zero, if not zero, on the planet, and 13 cycles a second will be reached by the Schumann cavity resonance, the heartbeat. Now, one thing's for sure, at that time, the Price is Right ain't going to be on the telly. Because this world is going to be very, very different by then. And this is what we're heading for now. Now, the reason this brotherhood have focused on the millennium rather than this real point of change, because we have the millennium because of the Gregorian calendar, which came out of the Vatican, they are trying to do a situation through the microchipping whereby we are held back artificially from making this leap of consciousness into a totally different state of being. Why is the magnetics of the planet falling? Very simple. When you put an electrical charge through an iron bar, it creates a north and south pole. When you put the charge the other way, the poles magnetically flip. If you look at the geological and other evidence, this has happened again and again on this planet, many, many times. There has been a magnetic pole shift when the whole magnetic field of the Earth has flipped, which has, of course, serious consequences and brings about tremendous change. Now, what is it that creates the Earth's magnetic field? It is the Earth spinning. Therefore, it throws out this electrical charge that creates the Earth's magnetic field. One other thing that's being identified as this change unfolds is that the Earth is spinning slower and slower. As it does so, the power of the magnetic field that it creates is getting less and less powerful. And again, the projection is around 2012 that the Earth could stop spinning altogether for about 3 days and then start to spin the other way. And what will happen at that point? The poles will flip magnetically. And the poles will change, and that, the geological and other records show, has happened again many times. Indeed, you look at some of the ancient texts and descriptions, they talk about phenomena that fit very well into this happening before. They talk about the longest day, the longest night, and what have you. So we're entering a period of fantastic change which is getting faster all the time. And we have two challenges here. Two challenges, one after the other. The first is to open our minds, start taking responsibility back, and remove this edifice of control and suppression of information, which will allow the full flow of knowledge of who we are to flood into the public arena. Once people get access to that information and start to realize who they really are and the nature of life, then we can go into stage 2, which is the incredible consciousness shift that is going to happen and is happening for many people already, but can happen for everybody if we open up to the knowledge of what's going on. And to do that, the edifice of suppression has to go. And what I see so often in the kind of what we call the New Age movement is they're focusing on the second bit, and they're in denial about the first. And the second is not going to happen for many people unless we remove the edifice of suppression, because most people are going to think, what the heck's going on? They're going to go through this great change in a complete fog of what's happening. Tremendous fear. Oh, my goodness me, what's happening? So there's two things to do here. One is to start focusing on how the world's controlled, identifying it, removing it. Secondly, then we can concentrate unhindered on the transformation spiritually that is unfolding to the year 2012 and beyond. One area, too, key area, because I mentioned the Gregorian calendar, that has been used to control us and de-link us from who we really are, is the manipulation of time. This planet works on moon time, 13 moon years. That's the sequence of time that we work on. Naturally, that's what nature is connected to. That's what the woman's menstrual cycle is connected to. But we're not connected to that. We're connected to this, time, as measured artificially. As a result, we have become de-linked from the natural flow of time. We've become de-linked from the cosmos. This is why native people who don't work with these things, who aren't slaves to the watch and the clock, are much more in tune with nature because they're resonating in the same time flow as nature. And where is time measured from on this planet? Greenwich, London, in the heart of the manipulation of the Brotherhood at operational level for so long, right to the present day. No accident. So we have a situation where the idea has been to turn us into left brain prisoners. Even conventional science accepts that the left brain is where we get intellect, logic, physical worldview. Can I touch it, taste it, smell it? Okay, it must exist. In the right brain, you have the bigger picture, the connection with the cosmos. That's where the artist, the inspiration, the creativity comes from. And if you look at the institutions of education, of science, and all these different areas of information, the media too, they're pumping information of a left brain variety and suppressing this. So you get a situation where what we call education works like this. Information is pumped into the left brain, most of it completely rubbish. And what people are asked to do, students are asked to do, is to hold that information there, and then when they get an exam paper in front of them, to regurgitate that onto the paper. If they remember it and put it there well enough, and repeat what they've been told, they pass the exam and progress. If they take that information in the left brain, transfer it to the right and start filtering it and questioning it, and saying, well, does it make sense? What do I think about this? And then tell the exam paper, oh, actually, it's a piece of shit, this stuff. Then they don't pass the exam, and they don't progress. The education system is completely built to create left-brain prisoners who are basically sponges of the official version of life. And if you're a scientist, for instance, you go through that, and then you go to your speciality in science, and you get more left-brain information. Same with doctors and all these professions. They're left-brain prisoners who cannot conceive so much of what I've been talking about here because they're imprisoned in the intellect. If we can just balance those two sides of the brain, the intellect and the spirit, the mind and the heart, then suddenly we are transformed in terms of our perception of ourselves. Well, this is a symbol that kind of encapsulates, I think, how we are disconnected from who we really are, and the process that so many people are going through now to remove that division so we can reconnect. What you're looking at there symbolically is I call it lower vibrational emotional range. It's the range of frequency that resonates the energy within us to fear, to guilt, to resentment, to lack of self-esteem. And the more that we are manipulated to feel those things, and the more we manipulate each other to feel those things, the more what I call that cesspit vibration of low vibrational emotion gets more and more full and more difficult to get through, and therefore out to the multidimensional state that we can get into as we reconnect with the ocean, with the cosmos. And this is why when people start on this spiritual journey, my goodness me, I was there myself over the last 10 years or so. The reason that they start to realize when they start to walk the journey that all hell breaks loose in their life, that structures break down in their life, and they think, crikey, if this is spiritual. I remember me, when I started on this route, my life broke down in so many ways. I thought, if this is spirituality, you can stuff it. I don't want to know. But why is this happening? Why does this happen to people? Because, as I mentioned earlier, when you put out your intent, this is what I want to achieve, that intent energy will always draw towards us what we need to achieve that intent. So, if we're going to reconnect with the cosmos, if we say, I want to be who I really am and connect with all that exists, then that intent will draw to us the experiences necessary to achieve that. All the time, every time. And what we need to do to achieve that connection is to clear out that cesspit level of low vibrational emotion. All those things within us which we've gone into denial about, like, I just changed the subject, mate, don't want to talk about it. And so we draw into our lives people, experiences, what have you, that make sure that we can no longer do that. That this has to come out and be processed, and we have to clean out all this emotional debris that's disconnecting us from who we really are. And so if we're prepared to walk this journey, if we don't at that stage when the challenges come go, oh no, like spirituality but not that badly, thank you very much. If we're prepared to take those challenges, to take a step back and realize that it's actually an experience that is going to set us free rather than a really negative, bad thing that is something to do with the fact that we're not good people. Must have been something terrible in a previous life. I hear that all the time. These connections or these challenges are to help set us free by cleaning this out. It's important we understand that. And I find that there are so many people in what's called the New Age or into the psychic stuff and all the rest of it who are still operating on a fraction of who they are because they're not prepared to do what is necessary and take the challenges to face what's within us. And we all have this stuff within us to remove and process. And when you do, that's when you can start talking about freedom. And it's coming back, as we come to a close here, to the same thing again and again, the way to freedom. And that is to step out of the fear what other people think of us and just do it, just do it, just do it. People say to me sometimes, how do I get over the fear of what people think? How do I get over the fear of what people think of me? What I would suggest is let the fear be the trigger to overcome it. So if you're in a situation where you're thinking, oh, well, I'd love to say this, but what will they think? Just say it. Just say it. If the people around you cannot respect your right to be you, then what are you worried about? What they think of you for? And if you're in a situation where I'd love to do this is what I like to do, but what will they think? Just do it, just do it, just do it. And when you get into that just do it mode, just do it mode, just do it mode, some very interesting things start to happen. First of all, you're following your intuition, your heart, your connection with out there, and you're letting that be your guide. Just do it intuitively. And after a while, and I've seen this in my own life, although the head is screaming, oh my God, what are you doing? Eventually, you start to realize that when you follow your intuition, although it might set up great challenges to start with, and you think, oh my goodness, what have I done? Eventually, you see that everything was exactly what was necessary to bring about a positive outcome. And after a while of doing this, of just doing it, just doing it, just doing it, your mind, your head starts to look at this and it realizes that every time you follow your intuition, although it's a challenge, eventually everything works out tremendously well. And what happens then is the head and the heart come into sync. And what you think and what you feel become the same thing. And that's when we start to connect with who we really are and the true nature of our power to manifest our own destiny. Just do it. And I'll just finish with this one, which I think kind of sums up all that I've been saying in this particular area of this story. People talk about a soul and the fact that we have a soul. For me, what we call soul, the highest expression of ourselves, is pure love. I don't care who you are, what your background is, what you've done. I don't care if you're Henry Kissinger or George Bush or David Rockefeller or the Queen of England or any of these guys that have been manipulating the world and still are. At that level of yourself, you're pure love. Everyone is. But we can become disconnected from that level and manifest in that disconnection anything but pure love. But that's what we all are, all of us. And when we get disconnected, that's when the problems start, and the imbalances start, and the imbalanced behavior starts. When we're born into a physical body, if we maintain that connection with pure love, soul, then we have everything we need for a balanced life. We have the eyes and ears information coming in, telling us and giving us a fix about the world around us, and we have the connection with soul, the big picture, the intuition, mission control, which is guiding us from another perspective. We have both. Symbolically, it's like a spaceman on the moon, where you're in that big spacesuit, symbolic of the body, and you've got the eyes and ears information giving you a fix on what's happening on the moon around you. But you've also got mission control, the big picture, giving you the big picture guidance. This is what comes next, then do that, and this is what's next on the agenda. Symbolic of intuition. Imagine what would happen if someone came along and cut or dramatically reduced that spaceman's connection to mission control. Suddenly, this is the only information and the vague memory of what should have been happening at this time. They're the only fix we have on who we are and where we are. And that spaceman's behavior would dramatically change within seconds and minutes compared with what it would have been had mission control stayed in big picture contact. And that symbolically is what happens to us when we come into this world. When we're born, the conditioning starts. The programming starts to disconnect us from mission control, the big picture, soul. So the eggshells start. We start to be conditioned to see ourselves as either just a physical body or subjected to some God and what have you. The programming gets started from the moment we become conscious. A friend of mine once said something very true. If you're born to loving parents and they tell you that 2 and 2 equals 5, and then you go on to nice teachers and they tell you 2 and 2 equals 5, and then you go on to university and professors with letters after their name tell you 2 and 2 equals 5, all your peers around you are telling you the same because they've been through the same system. The media is telling you constantly 2 and 2 equals 5. It's no surprise that the vast majority of people go through their lives believing 2 and 2 equals 5. The conditioning of belief which disconnects us from who we really are. And if we can just break that eggshell and we can express the true nature of who we are and not live someone else's version of what we should be, when the eggshell cracks, we reconnect with mission control. And at that point, we taste freedom. And that is the challenge now that we all have and the opportunity we all have. The Chinese have a word that means both danger and opportunity. We're at the point now of that choice. Because that's what life is. It's a choice and learning from the consequences of the choice and making different choices and learning from the consequences of them. That's what evolution is. And we're at a point now where we can make incredible leaps as this 26,000-year cycle comes to an end. The next 15 years are going to transform life on Earth. They're going to transform the nature of our perception. They're maybe going to transform some of the physical Earth also. One thing's for sure, it's going to be one heck of a challenge. But no matter how challenging it gets, one thing remains constant. We live forever. We are everything, and everything is us. Whatever we're experiencing in this moment, it's just an experience. We live forever. And if we can hold that focus of who we are, we get out of ordinary little man and woman in the street, I've got no power, to I am everything that exists and I can manifest and create whatever I want. We are genius. We've forgotten we're genius. And that's why a few people run the world. I'm going to end with some words by a singer in America who wrote new words to the American national anthem. To get away from the nationalism, he called it the Earth Anthem. And the world that he describes here is the world that is just a thought away, just an open heart away, just a change of perception away. We can think hate, we can think love. We can create a world dominated by hate and fear, or we can create a world dominated by love, compassion. It's just a choice, and we all have the opportunity to do that. So I'll leave you with these words, with the emphasis that this is the world we can and will create. When we heal ourselves, we heal the world. When we change ourselves, we change the world. When we love ourselves, we love the world. And when we love the world, it manifests in a very different form to the one I've been talking about these hours over these thousands of years of manipulation. Freedom is upon us. Time to grasp it. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for your time.